people. Hey youth, it's your girl Ashley here with another video, and in this video I will be talking about seeking or receiving help. And I'm just going to share a little of my experiences with this whole process of receiving help. Of course, I have my notes right here, guys. So I am going to definitely try to stay on topic. When it comes down to like receiving help, I never really considered like the impacts that receiving help could, provide on this journey of like just going through this process with like my mental health. And when it came down to that idea of actually doing the first step of receiving help, I would make excuses. I would just come to this realization or this excuse that I was, doing the world a favor by holding in, the things that I was going through. I really didn't. I felt like everybody had their own issues that they were dealing with. So me adding my issues to them, I just, thought that was just like a selfless act of just keeping it to myself instead of sharing it, even though I wanted to like gain that help and get to a point where I could be able to take that first step. And I was really embarrassed. Like, I think that was a big part of it, just embarrassed at the fact that I needed help, and I just thought that I would get judged for some of the experiences that I experienced, and just like I felt like I would just, of course, be blamed for it. And I thought that no one really understood what I was going through. I felt like, I was the only one that was going through whatever it was that I was going through. And I thought that people would tell me to like snap out of it, or just, that I was choosing to feel this type of way, that I was, pretty much just choosing to be in a place of just, being depressed or being anxious and everything else that I was going through at the time. And a big part of that fear was, because I had became the person that everybody came to when they needed help. And I just felt that if, now that I'm on the flip side of it, that, those people would see me as like weak, or they would see me as like this person that was, that they couldn't confide in, or, just pretty much being at a place of judgment on that part. Like, you're this person that's helping everybody else, so why do you need help, in a sense? And it's kind of funny because when I was, before I even thought about being a counselor, before I even thought to go get my master's in counseling, I was in the position of everyone, even like in high school, even like in when I was a teenager, like people used to come to me with their issues and like seek, help and advice and all of that. So it's kind of crazy. Before I even got the degree, like I was already in that counseling role for a lot of people. And, that was one of the things that kind of, made me more reluctant to seeking help. And I, remember the first time sharing some of my traumas with someone, and it was a very surreal moment for me because, I had kept that in for so long, and, I wasn't able to express how I wanted to express it. Of course, through like tears and through like the emotions and all of that. But even though I didn't or wasn't able to express, my truths how I wanted to, I still felt a sense of power that I was reclaiming back by just sharing, the things that were trying to keep me down, that were trying to, control my life. And I do want to caution, you guys, when you are looking to receive help, that you be mindful of who it is that you are seeking that help from, because not everybody is capable of helping you. Not everybody has the tools to help you specifically with those issues that you might be going through. And that's okay. Like, that's totally fine. But there has to be this sense of perseverance in you to keep going and look for that help that you deserve and that you need, and to really understand that it is out there. And you might come to a person that is not equipped with the tools to help you, and that's okay. You just have to keep going until you find someone who is able to better serve you. And like, I remember I remember the first time that I talked to a mental health professional. I was going through this transition with like COVID, and our school was transitioning back from virtual to going back to traditional, so teachers were required to come back into the classroom. And I was just going through so much at that time that I thought that I was literally going to have to quit my job. So I just remember just coming to this point where I knew that I needed help. And it wasn't so much about COVID, but earlier that year of 2020, I had suffered from a very crazy incident at work that required me to have extensive surgery. And I was just super, anxious. I had developed post-traumatic stress disorder from that whole thing. And it kind of like kept me restricted from wanting to go into the classroom where I had sustained the injury. And I just remember my anxiety was just taking over my life at this point where I just had enough. So I reached out to a counselor, coworker, and I asked if she could refer me to someone who she thought was a pretty good counselor. So I reached out to this counselor. I remember it because it was just like so surreal for me, because my anxiety, guys, a lot of people don't know that my anxiety had kind of kept me from phone conversations. So I experienced, anxiety from being on the phone where I couldn't be at a comfortable position to talk over the phone. And I just remember, calling this counselor, person I never met in my life, and just sharing with this person, this woman, all of like my traumas and just my fears and the things that I was going through. And I just remember like it being very surreal to have that experience. She was completely understanding. She allowed me to, express what I was going through. And, that was just the first step of my journey that just like pretty much transformed my whole life. It transitioned me for the better. And, throughout this therapeutic process, there was no judgment. There was no, blame, no faults directed at me, but it was a relationship where I had developed with her, that she allowed me to share some of the things that I was going through and have that time to reflect and have time to pretty much, work out my own issues on my own time and go through that process. And, I just really appreciate her for doing that, and, I never knew that would be a stepping stone for my own personal life. And, again, like it was very transformational. Like I had no reason to like be embarrassed. And, sometimes we kind of question ourselves, in this process of like who or where do we go to receive the help. And there's resources out there, and I know sometimes we have to kind of be a little bit more adamant about receiving the help that we deserve and that we need. And even like I feel, even from like a spiritual standpoint, that some people question, like, can you have a therapist and still be safe? Like, I feel like the answer is yes. I feel like, you might not have a therapist, but you could talk to a pastor, you could talk to a friend, you could talk to someone. As long as you're talking to someone that you feel is benefiting your process to get you to those goals. In counseling, we have treatment plans and goals that, you try to strive to meet. And sometimes, you might have to reevaluate those goals, and that's okay, because they change as you achieve them, as you figure out where you are in your process. And all of that is okay. And I do believe that God placed people in our lives along our journey to kind of help us get to where it is that He will have us to be. I know sometimes we kind of can get in that mode of being, super spiritual in a sense, for lack of a better term, that we sometimes put all of the work on God, and God is wanting us to, activate our faith and actually activate the work that goes in with faith. And if you haven't checked out my other video, please do check out the video entitled Faith, to learn more about the belief and the process of working out those beliefs through your actions. And and going back to like the topic that I was saying before, I just feel like, sometimes we can put all of that work on God, and God is just like, hey, you have to meet me, in that process as well. And sometimes, I think that we put ourselves in places that are not conducive for our healing. We have to understand that, all truth is parallel when it comes down to even the spiritual side and the natural side. And it even reminds me, like, this whole thing reminds me of like this story about a man who's drowning. And I thought that this would be a very befitting story to tell, because sometimes we find ourselves like this man in the story who's drowning, and he is praying to God to receive help from drowning. And he's like, God, please help me. And like God sends him a rowboat. And you guys probably heard this story before. Like God sends him a rowboat, and he's like, the rowboat person is coming, and he's like, oh no, God is going to save me from this. And it's like, okay, well, he prays again, and like this time a motorboat comes along to rescue him, and he tells the motorboat person like, hey, thank you for your help, but God is gonna save me from this. And so the motorboat person leaves, and then like he prays it for the third time, and then like a plane comes, and he's like, the plane person's like, hey, I'm here to rescue you. And the guy's like, no, God is gonna save me. And then the plane leaves, and then finally, he's left drowning, and he ends up, I think dying from drowning. And he gets to heaven, and he's like, okay, I need to question, God about why he didn't save me. So he goes and asks God, like, God, why didn't you save me? You knew that I was drowning. And God is like, hey, I sent you a rowboat, I sent you a motorboat, I sent you a plane. What more do you want from me? Like, and I feel like sometimes we can get in that mode if we're not careful and we're not discerning who God has put in our lives to help us, to rescue us from us drowning, whatever your water might be, whether it is mental health, whether it is work or parenting or whatever the struggle that you're going through, God is sending help, and we have to be, willing to be vulnerable, to put ourselves in a position to receive that help, because, God will send it. He will send it. You just have to do our parts in order to receive it. And, guys, don't get discouraged, because I know this process can be very difficult. It can be very, overwhelming. It can be scary even. And don't get discouraged if you are trying to find help, or you're trying to seek help, and you are, faced with people that are telling you no, and or they're not able to help you. Just keep looking until you roll up on someone who can say yes, and who says yes to you, because that's all you need, is one person to say yes. I've had, in my whole therapeutic journey, I've had 3 different counselors, I've had 2 psychiatrists, and you have to keep looking until you find someone that is suitable for you. And even in your process, there's people that are specifically trained to handle specific things dealing with mental health, or mental illnesses that you might be suffering. And just don't get discouraged, don't get dismayed if you have to continue to do that work to get who you need and what you deserve. And of course, I want to end by giving you guys a little word of encouragement. I want to give you guys this prayer, or pray with you. I just want to pray with you. So, of course, I have my prayer written down for what I want to pray with you about. So, if you will, pray with me, join in with me. Dear God, we come before you. I'll say that over. Dear God, we come before you humble as we know how, God, that whoever is in need of help in this hour, that you see their hearts and call them forth. God, you give them courage to seek after their healing. God, charge their hearts that they can start this process today, and we rebuke the hand of the enemy that comes to steal their joy, peace, and happiness. God, cover their minds, that anything that tries to enter or has entered that is not like you, allow the mind of Christ to infiltrate and cause a disruption to any negative thinking. God, we thank you for being a father that helps your people. Thank you for calling forth a set of people that will provide the tools that we need in order to get your people to understand that their mind is within their identity. God, so that as a man thinketh, so is he. I thank you for moving and changing the atmosphere. I thank you for changing our homes. I thank you for changing our hearts. And I thank you for moving mightily in our hearts, God. That your love will overshadow all pain, that it will overshadow the hurt, the trauma, and uncertainty, as well as fear. God, move right now. Deliver your people. Amen. Guys, I'm so excited that you were able to tune in with me on this video entitled Seeking Help. Again, guys, connect with me. Share your stories. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. And I'm also on LinkMe. It's a new social media app. So I will be providing all of the details below in and you guys just connect with me. Okay, until next time. Bye-bye. See ya.